What's up? This Chug Rock, aka Kendrick. What I want to talk about in this video topic is about how people need and should be talking to one another with respect and not calling each other negative names. You know, we should be kind to one another. People love to say they love one another, but don't know how to talk to one another righteously. And that's confusing. If you love somebody, you should talk to somebody correctly. You know, and that's the thing about people, black, my race specifically. Because I see them do it the most. I don't see no other race do it the way my race of people do it. From my race, my bloodline, where I come from, the African bloodline. So, as an Afro man, Negro, African, you know, I'm speaking on this because this needs to be talked about. I don't hear nobody talking about this, but I'm gonna speak on it. I'm probably not the only one speaking on it, but I'm one of the ones that's speaking on it, at least. You know, so y'all, those who doing it, just talking to people, calling people negative names, for example, like stupid, retarded, dumb, idiot, the crazy. Y'all need to stop it. If that person is not doing something foul towards you to degrade you, why are you calling that person out? And even if that person is doing that still ain't giving you the right to do that. Keep y'all words to yourselves. Don't let that evil spirit come out outside of you and say those type of things. That should never be brought out your mouth. Because that's evil. That's of the devil. Evil communication is of the devil. Saying negative names, calling people out of context, is not of righteousness. I can't see myself practicing those type of things. Although I have done it before, I've been guilty of it before, but I never practiced it, like that. For y'all to thinking it's cool, it's not cool because it's not kind. You should be kind. If you're a good person, you should stay kind to people, and that's present your words with respect. You can't be calling people out their names and expecting for them to be on one accord to you. You're dogging them when you do that. Negative words are meant to be negative. They're not meant to be positive. Positive words give encouragement. Positive words make you feel good. Negative words give you a negative vibe. It don't make you feel good. It make you feel bad. It's supposed to make you feel bad. It's down in you. And how can you say a person is a negative word when you don't know that person, especially if you don't know that person? Now, if you know that person, you can I guess you can make assumptions like that, but still, you got to be careful with that. You know what I'm saying? You got to be careful what you say out your mouth. Negative words, that's one of the things people need to stop doing of my race. What are you playing or what, especially if you're serious. If you playing or especially if you're serious. Do not do that. Good people shouldn't be doing that. Good people don't need to be doing that. That's not righteous. That's what the demons want you to do. I don't practice that. This for the people that do that. So we as righteous people, we should walk in righteousness. Walking in righteousness is respecting people. Calling people negative terms is not respecting people. So I'd rather die a saint than a bad person. I don't want to practice what is evil. You know, I don't want to. I don't want no evil communication to come out of my mouth. You know, I don't like that. Even the Bible talks about evil communications. You know what I'm saying? Evil communications are corrupt. Evil communications is for bad people to use. Us good people, we should use clean words, respectful PG words out of our mouths. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't be cussing at nobody, cussing nobody out. We shouldn't be, just because we angry, we should, you know, like I let out anger, but that's for a righteous cause, where so um I'm not gonna you know say that I was always not doing this. I'll be a liar. But we should get better. You know, these what these videos are for, to encourage you to do better in your life. What you're struggling with, what you're doing, So, you know, evil communication, which is calling people out their names, which is calling them negative terms, like stupid, idiot, retarded, dumb, crazy, you know, stuff like that, for an example. You know, dirty terms, not clean terms, not positive terms, you know. So that's what it is. You heard? Y'all be respectful out there. Be respectful.